Welcome! While we wait for everyone to arrive, please go to this Poll Everywhere survey and reflect. As a mentor, how are you doing? Please take this fatigue self-assessment survey to see how we are doing as a group. This is an anonymous survey through the Poll Everywhere application, and the link is in your Google Classroom. Welcome to the 2022 March monthly mentor meeting, and our topic today is keeping the momentum in learning. Today's targeted outcomes are that mentors will practice mentoring language by sharing challenges and brainstorming solutions together, especially around the notion of supporting new teachers as they develop a variety of strategies for helping keeping the momentum in learning during the last quarter of the school year. The CSTPs that will be addressed are listed on your screen, and one of the things I want you to notice is that there are portions of every single CSTP that do address this topic. Number 5, CSTP 5 assessment is not listed, but there are portions of that also are covered. But I figured assessment is just something that we're doing a lot of this time of year, and we didn't need to specifically look at that, but look at the other components of the CSTPs and see where this topic and this subject, relate and where they lie. And then at the end, we'll just address some program nuts and bolts. For a connecting activity, the mentors broke into groups of 3 and discussed the needs and possible needs of new teachers as students and teachers both experience academic fatigue. Then they put their ideas on a Padlet and shared with the whole group. Please go to the Padlet in the link in your Google Classroom and read through the comments and add another comment add another comment or post one of your own with your name attached so that you can get credit for attending this meeting. So if we talk about and think about the definition of fatigue, it starts with weariness or exhaustion from labor, exertion, or stress. So all of these things are things that you and your students and your induction candidate have been experiencing. Fatigue is also a state or attitude of indifference or apathy brought on by overexposure as to a repeated series of similar events or appeals. And I want you to think right now about all the test prepping you're doing, and assessments and direct instruction that might be happening this time of year, and how that may impact your students as well as the teachers themselves, including you and or your induction candidates. Fatigue is also the tendency of material to break under repeated stress. And that's just something that we really don't want you or your students or your induction candidates to do, to break under the repeated stress of what's going on in the classroom and how this school year's been going. You get to see this twice. Okay, so when we're looking for indicators or signs of mental fatigue in students, I want you to think, have you seen any of these behaviors in any or all of your students? And how about your induction candidates? Have they complained or mentioned any of these behaviors that they're seeing in the classroom? One would be a deterioration in ability to concentrate on tasks and a decreasing attention span, increasing distractibility, rubbing their eyes, fidgeting, excessive yawning, deterioration in schoolwork such as decreased accuracy, more mistakes, or an inability to complete tasks, or also a decreased willingness to attempt schoolwork. Are they becoming apathetic? And in that case, which could be, attributed to many different things, but some of the things we talked about on the previous slide, can contribute to these signals. And so we want you to be able to talk to your induction candidates about, well, whether you're seeing any of these signs in your induction candidates, but also, are they seeing any signs of this in their students? Or are they coming to you with questions or complaints? And that these are some of the things that they're seeing this time of year. And that would also include a deterioration behavior such as decreased compliance and increased frustration. So are students becoming less willing to follow directions, complete assignments, and or are they more easily frustrated than they were earlier on in the school year? So one of the ways, or a couple of the ways we want to talk about being able to handle this or to give guidance to our candidates to help them is, in fact, to stay engaged ourselves, with our work, with what we are doing, and recognizing. So here's 2 articles. One of them is recognizing mental fatigue in students and how to keep students engaged in learning. And the second one is more of adult, either for you, your candidates, or the students, recognizing mental fatigue and doing something about it. And this article is your brain tired? And here are 6 ways to treat mental fatigue. So what I'd like you to do is take a few minutes to read. You're on your own. So I'd actually like you to read both articles, please. And you don't have anybody to brainstorm with, but what I'd like you to do then is, after you read, go back to the Padlet and see if you want to add anything that might help, to some of the suggestions, and add any new or add any thoughts, individual thoughts, to the Padlet. And again, the link is in your Google Classroom. Okay, so I'm hoping that you read the articles and that you looked at the Padlet and added to it, or think about some things that you might be able to take back to and talk to your candidate about. But here are some suggestions that the lead mentors brainstormed when we met together. Thinking about or talking to the the induction candidates, about how do you read the room and address student fatigue in the classroom. How do you know? How do you recognize that? Experienced teachers, we've had, years of experience looking at students this time of year and seeing that they're a little fried or burned out. But newer teachers may or may not be able to recognize some of those signals in their students or in themselves even. Here's a suggestion: checking for understanding and thinking about, when do you have to prune and cut back and focus on key elements. And we talked about that before, I think. Being selective in what you're teaching, not necessarily the breadth, but looking at the depth of what you're covering. How do you help students do brain shifts to help and re-engage them? Keep students focused after spring break and testing, to get to the end of the year. That's still valuable instructional time. And how do you keep the momentum going in learning? And how do you, and this is something that's kind of ongoing, how do you help students feel safe with the news? Do their parents have the news, with the war in Ukraine on all the time? Are they worried about it? I know the seniors, especially senior boys, might be worried about, are they going to have to go fight? The little kids might be hearing this and seeing things and worrying about that coming to our country. I know that was something after 9/11. My son was 9, and that impacted him greatly. So thinking about even the younger kids as well as the older kids with the news, with what's going on. And so this is a suggestion: working on the relationships and maintaining those relationships and touching base with your students as individually as much as possible. And some of the ways were like morning meetings, checking in daily, or afternoon meetings, just somehow checking in with students daily, and then celebrating the wins, the good things that are going on, and the positives. And that kind of also goes to social emotional learning, goes to MTSS, all those different things to help students stay feeling that they are part of the classroom and that it's important for them to be there. and it's important for them to be still engaged in their own learning. So bringing that to induction, and how can we document some of those conversations that you may or may not be having with your candidates, around these topics. So what I wanted to remind you, and if you are one of the newer mentors, to go to the Google Classroom and look in section 6.1, the tools and forms that are used to document candidate evidence of practice. And here's a list of some of them that you might find helpful towards the end of the year. So, and this is a new one, the end of the year closing tool. If you look at mediating conflict and effective discipline, you might need to revisit that and have a conversation. But a big one also might be mentor-teacher collaboration log, the log, mentor/teacher collaboration log, where you're just having a conversation and talking about what's working, what are some challenges, and what might be some strategies or next steps you can do. And that's just documenting that conversation. Open houses might be coming up, and how do you work those if you've never done those before? So there's a log there that can document that conversation also. So remember, you and your candidate get to choose which tools you want to use to help focus and guide that conversation, as well as provide evidence of learning for that teacher to submit into their Google Classroom. So this is the new tool that I just posted, and it's called End of the Year Planning. And I wanted you to think back to when you first started teaching at the end of the year. So first year teachers might not know how to close out their classrooms, for the summer, and each school site might do it a little bit differently. But this tool has some ideas for you to talk about. Remember, you can add your own, or you don't have to talk about all of these. What does your school or your candidate's school, require for the end of the year, and help them plan for it. But also, keep in mind the notion that if you take everything down right after testing and you're checked out, the students are going to be checked out also. So try to keep the students engaged. And I know the end of the year planning, end of the year closing the room out is a lot of work, and you want to get it done. But if you appear disengaged and checked out already, your students will pick up on that, and they will check out also. So this is a planning tool for the end of the year, and thinking about all the things that new teachers, or that all teachers need to do to close up their classrooms for summer. This is kind of an information. It doesn't come under nuts and bolts, but it's information for you, and as well as for your new induction candidates. Cluster 4 is the group of induction program directors in the greater Los Angeles area, and of which we are a part. And Cluster 4 has put together learning development opportunities for our teachers and mentors who might be interested in some training and information on these topics. So I've shared this in the Google Classroom stream, but I wanted to share again with you in case you are interested. So it's for mentors and or induction candidates. So if your candidate needed some guidance in locating any professional learning opportunities for this last inquiry cycle, this might be a go-to, or just yourself or your candidate to learn more about some of these topics. So they're listed here. There's a button if you go to the actual slide deck that will be posted in Google Classroom. You can access that link there, but also look in the Google Stream because it's there also. These trainings are virtual and free to candidates and mentors. They'll be about an hour or an hour and a half long, 2 hours long, maybe 4 to 6, April 25th. It'll be after school, virtually. And once you're registered, then you'll get the Zoom link. Okay, we're getting ready to wrap this up. So talking about nuts and bolts, payroll should have all the correct information regarding the mentors and the correct number of candidates. I've been in touch with Jonathan Rico over there and have reviewed everybody's candidate load with them. So it should be straightened out, and everything should come out in the wash by the end of the school year. So at the end of the year, leading to the end of the year submissions. Please make sure all your induction candidates are wrapped up by May 13th. I think that's about 8 weeks, so you might need to plan ahead on some of that. And we are also planning on having an end of the year colloquium. It was a request from mentors, and it'll be Saturday, May 14th from 11 in the morning to 2, probably at the PDC, but more information will be forthcoming, and that is for candidates and teachers. Okay? So please remember, as you're heading into this last inquiry cycle and the last quarter, last stretch of the school year, that teaching is really about inspiration and not information. Effective teaching focuses on why and how, not necessarily on what. The goal should be to spark each student's imagination, to find a hook in their heart and mind so that they feel a need to learn the material. And that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Okay? So thank you very much. Please make sure your name is on the Padlet somewhere so I can give you credit for viewing this recording of this mentor meeting. And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you very much and have a good rest of your day.